Welcome back, coders. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get started in Java. So, the first thing you want to know when you're working with Java is that Java involves something called classes. Classes can be seen as I guess you could say like a blueprint, as it will allow you to determine what's going to happen in a program and what objects may be utilized in that program. For right now, we don't necessarily know what an object is, but eventually this will make sense. So all you need to know as a class is what contains our Java code. So here we have our first file, and we named it firstfile.java. When you create a class, you must start it off with the modifier of public. And public is just saying that it can be accessed by any other files you may create. There are other modifiers out there, but for this example, we'll just work with public. So the first thing you want to do is type public, and it needs to be all lowercase. If you have a capital, it's going to cause issues. So this is case sensitive, meaning that it must be all lowercase. Followed by class, and then you're going to follow it by the class name. The class name is going to be whatever the name of the file is. So in this case, our file name is called first file, so that's what our class name needs to be. So we'll type first file. Now, when you create this class, you have to make sure that the spelling and the uppercase or lowercase is considered in this. As you see, in first file, I have a capital F, so in my class, I have a capital F as well. They must be exactly the same in order to avoid errors. Once you do that, you need to follow your class with curly braces and click enter. The curly braces is what's going to hold your Java code. So many of the structures you're going to use in Java are going to involve curly braces. So when you use these braces, you need to ensure that you have an open one, which is the one pointed to the left right here, and a closed one, which is the one pointed to the right here. So just keep that in mind. Now, inside of our class, we need to have a main method. Our main method is basically what allows us to run our Java program. It is typically required in every program that you want to execute, as the main method is what will call your Java code. So for us to create a main method, it will start off with public, followed by static, void, main, string. Then you'll follow it by the brackets. And then we will say args. Oh, let's take that out. Do not put args inside of the bracket. Args goes outside of the bracket. And then with this, you follow it with the curly braces as well. So this is our main method. Our main method is pretty much going to allow us to run some code in Java. So what exactly does all this mean? It's basically saying that we have a class called firstFile that has a main method, and that main method is going to run some code. So we're not going to get into the details of exactly what all of these words mean, because this is video 1, so there's no need to confuse you right now. But just know that a class and a main method are required to run your Java code. So now let's put some code inside of our main method. The first simple thing you can do is we'll put what we call the print method. Printing will allow us to see or display something to our console. So in Java, that would be system dot out. And here it's a good example because it shows you in Eclipse the different things you can do. So system is actually a module in Java that has different capabilities. As you see, all of these things that popped up on the screen are different things you can do with system in Java. In this case, we're going to be using the system.out, which allows us to print. So we'll say out and we'll click that. And then here's all the things you can also do with the system.out. In this case, we're going to do the print line. So I'm going to type print line. And this is an example of how we would print in Java. Now, there's also something called a comment. Now, comments are used to take notes about what's going on in your code in case, for example, you start your code this day and then the next day you come back to it and want to remember what was going on. This is where comments come into play. You should typically use comments every time you write Java code or any program code for that matter. For us in Java, up here is an example of multi-line code, and it is used using these asterisks. So here we can type, this is our first program in Java. And in this one, we could say, we are learning how to create a class main method print statements and comments. All right. So that's the basic part we want to get into with this. And if we get inside of here in our main method, you could also do a single line comment with 2 slashes. And then we can say printing information to the user. Now, inside of our print statement, we are going to put what's called a string. And in Java, a string is just some text that we're implementing and utilizing in our code. We'll cover a deeper dive into strings in a future video, but for now, just know string basically is text. For us to use strings, you have to use the double quotes. So you would do that inside of the system.out.println like that. So this would be a empty string. And if you want to use words, then you could say, in this case, my first Java program. So anything that's in between the quotes will be inside of the string. And so far, we just created our first Java program. Now, if you would like to run this program, you can go up to the top. And here it's saying, do you want to save and launch? I do, so I will say always save before launching and click OK. And it opened up my console. And here you see it printed out to us, my first Java program. So that is how we created our first Java program. You see here that we created a class, a main method, and a print statement, and that's simply how you would get started in Java doing simple coding. Of course, in this case, you can copy the print statement as many times as you want and or type it as many times as you want to show different things to the user. So we'll do another one, print line. I am using Java. Another thing I want to point out is that if you do not end your Java code with a semicolon, you're going to have an error. So if you see on line 10, we ended our print statement with a semicolon and it's not red. But on line 11, I did not put one, and you see that red squiggly as well as the X to the left. That means we have an error in our code. And if we were to run it, it would cause problems. So we'll go ahead and run it. As you see, it says errors in the workspace, errors exist in the project. Do you want to proceed? I'll say proceed. And it tells us right here that we have error. So as a programmer, you need to understand how to read this error. It's not just here just to annoy you or ignore it. It's pretty much here to tell you what you need to do to fix your code. So as a coder, you need to figure out how to read it and how to interpret it. So the first thing we can look at is this says exception in thread main java.lang.error. So it's telling us there's an error and it's telling us it's in the main, which is our main method. It's saying that we have an unresolved compilation problem, which means that we did not fix a problem before we compiled our program. So compile means to execute. So basically it's saying that there's an unresolved problem that we didn't fix before we executed this code. And it's telling us it's a syntax error. So syntax is basically coding rules that you have to follow when running your code. So Java has syntax rules, Python has syntax rules, and a bunch of other coding languages have syntax rules. It's up to you to understand what syntax rules apply to which programming language, but in this case, we basically made the syntax error of leaving out the semicolon. Semicolons are important to complete Java statements, and if you look next to the syntax error, it tells us to insert a semicolon to complete the statement. So I'm going to go up to line 11, enter the semicolon, and now you see the X is gone. And we can run this again to see if that fixed our problem, which it did. So now you have an understanding of how to work with Java files and how to simply read through error messages you may get. As time goes on, your error messages will get bigger. They might be more demanding of you to fix, but that's part of coding. So don't get discouraged when you run across a lot of errors and need to fix them. It's totally normal, and that's just a process of learning. But overall, in this video, I have showed you how to create a class, create a main method, create print statements, and fix errors in Java. Hopefully this wasn't too bad to get you started, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.